Imagine waking up one morning to find out that American military aircraft parked in Texas and Alaska were completely destroyed by drones nobody saw coming. That's exactly the scale of what happened in Russia on June 1st, 2025. In an operation known as Spiderweb, Ukraine pulled off what seemed impossible, penetrating more than 4,000 kilometers deep into Russian territory and destroying an impressive amount of Russian military assets. We're talking about an attack that cost the Kremlin about $7 billion and exposed vulnerabilities Moscow preferred to keep secret. And the craziest part is that these drones weren't built in fancy military factories. They were put together in makeshift workshops using parts you can buy online. It's like a group of engineers in a garage managing to take down some of the most expensive military planes in the world. And that's no exaggeration. Ukraine produced 2 million drones in 2024 and plans to build up to 5 million in 2025, completely changing the nature of modern conflict. But what were the precious weapons Russia lost? And how could this shift the balance of conflict? On the morning of Sunday, June 1st, 2025, the Ukrainian Security Service pulled off one of the boldest operations in recent years. Using 117 explosive drones launched from disguised trucks that secretly crossed the Russian borders, the Ukrainians simultaneously hit 5 airbases: Olynya in the Murmansk region, Belya in Siberia, Ivanovo, Dyagilevo, and Ukrainka. The result was devastating for Moscow. Strategic bombers Tu-95 and Tu-22M3, as well as early warning aircraft A-50, were reduced to rubble in a matter of hours. To get a sense of the scale here, we need to picture the distances involved. Belya base in Siberia is 4,300 kilometers from Ukrainian front line. Olynya base, way up north in Russia, is 2,000 kilometers away. Dyagilevo is just 175 kilometers from Moscow, basically in the Kremlin's backyard. In 2023, Ukraine made about 800,000 drones. In 2024, that number jumped to 2 million units. For 2025, projections show production hitting up to 5 million drones, turning a country at war into the world's biggest maker of unmanned aerial vehicles. These numbers get even crazier when you consider that Ukraine is operating under constant bombardment and a severely weakened economy. Meanwhile, Russia, with its whole military-industrial complex inherited from a Soviet era, struggles to keep up with this production. The key difference lies in the approach. While Moscow tries to maintain traditional and expensive military systems, Kyiv embraced low-cost, distributed innovation. The impact is devastating for Russian forces. According to the Royal United Services Institute, based in the UK, up to 70% of the damage caused to Russian military equipment in 2025 comes from drone attacks. This marks a fundamental shift in the conflict's dynamics, where systems costing a few $100 are destroying gear worth millions. Operation Spiderweb was no fly-by-night attack. For 18 months, Ukrainian teams meticulously planned every detail. The OSA FPV drones, built with low-cost components and open-source software, were disassembled and transported in modular compartments installed in regular civilian trucks. This camouflage let them cross Russian borders without raising suspicion. What makes this operation even more remarkable is the context of Ukraine's massive drone production. By early 2025, the country was cranking out 200,000 first-person view drones per month, each capable of taking out tanks and military gear worth millions of dollars. This mass production isn't happening in centralized, vulnerable factories, but rather in a distributed network of small and medium workshops across the country. The timing of the attack was surgically precise. Remote operators triggered the truck's compartments to release the drones, which flew low profile until they popped up near their targets. Using a combo of ArduPilot software and AI, these aircraft could identify and adjust their routes in real time, dodging sophisticated air defense systems like the S-400. The immediate result was brutal for the Russian Air Force. Between 13 and 20 aircraft were completely destroyed, with another 21 to 28 suffering significant damage. We're not just talking numbers here. Each Tu-95 bomber costs roughly $300 million, while an early warning A-50 is worth about $330 million. More important than the cash value is the operational capability lost. The Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 bombers are key to Russia's strategy for long-range strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure. Every destroyed aircraft means a direct cut in Moscow's ability to launch cruise missiles against civilian and military targets in Ukraine. The A-50s, responsible for air surveillance and coordinating operations, are even rarer and harder to replace. The the psychological impact might be even bigger than the material losses. For Russians, it was like an insurgent faction simultaneously attacking military bases all over the continental territory. The feeling of invulnerability the Kremlin cultivated about its own turf started to crumble. Emergency declarations at some bases and urgent moves to shelter aircraft underground revealed a nervousness Moscow tried to hide. But there's an even more worrying angle for Russian forces, the proof that their most advanced defenses can be bypassed by relatively simple tech. The S-400 system, considered one of the world's most advanced air defenses, showed vulnerability to tactics combining speed, coordination, and exploiting blind spots. This forces a complete rethink of Russian defense doctrine and demands massive investments in new systems, resources that are increasingly scarce. Russia's 2025 budget allocates 41% of public spending to defense, equal to 7.2% of GDP. That's the highest share since Soviet times. For context, the U.S. spends about 3.5% of GDP on defense in peacetime. This massive budget mobilization means investments in civil infrastructure, education, and healthcare are being drastically cut. The Russian economy, which grew 4.1% in 2024, slowed to just 1.8% in 2025. Inflation hit nearly 10%, while consumer interest rates soared to 21%. These conditions create a vicious cycle. High living costs fuel social discontent, while high interest rates make productive investment nearly impossible. Economic analysts predict 2025 might be the year Russia's economy finally freezes under sanctions weight. Signs are worrying for Moscow. Many Russians show growing concern about the economy and their personal well-being. The Kremlin, for its part, lacks a clear strategy to handle these growing financial struggles. The problem is structural and deepening daily. Every Ukrainian drone hitting a Russian target doesn't just cause material damage, but forces Russia to spend scarce resources on repairs and replacements. It's a war of attrition where the Ukrainian side inflicts disproportionately high costs using relatively cheap resources. One of the most visible consequences of sanctions is the hit to Russian energy revenues. The price cap imposed by the G7 and the replacement of European clients by so-called dark fleet operations caused a 17% drop in oil and gas revenues in Q1 2025 compared to the same period last year. The dark fleet is a network of often old, poorly maintained tankers transporting Russian oil while evading sanctions. Although it lets Moscow keep exporting, it operates with much smaller margins and significantly higher risks. Buyers, mainly in Asia, negotiate big discounts due to the legal and logistical risks involved. At the same time, over 300 billion euros in Russian reserves remain frozen in Western banks. That amount equals roughly 2 years of military spending at current levels, but is inaccessible to Moscow. The impact is twofold. It limits short-term funding capacity and creates uncertainty about the long-term sustainability of the military effort. From a geopolitical standpoint, the spiderweb operation goes beyond its immediate military impact. For Kyiv and its Western allies, it's a powerful show that even under intense pressure, Ukrainian forces can project power deep inside Russian territory. This not only affects Russia's ability to bomb Ukrainian cities, but also undermines the sense of invulnerability Moscow had cultivated. The operation also serves as a lab for the future of modern warfare. The integration of low-cost drones, AI, and swarm tactics marks a big evolution in combat art. For American and NATO military analysts, it shows how smaller foes can use commercial tech and tactical creativity to neutralize conventional advantages of great powers. Internationally, Ukraine's success strengthens the narrative that Western military and financial support is delivering real results. It boosts the coalition backing Ukraine and justifies continuing the flow of weapons and funds. For the U.S. specifically, it shows that investing in Ukrainian capabilities can bring significant strategic returns without direct American troop involvement. The operation also raises important questions about the long-term implications of democratizing military tech. The drones used were built with off-the-shelf commercial parts, open-source software, and techniques that others can copy. This is both an opportunity and a threat to global security. On one hand, it lets smaller nations defend effectively against bigger aggressors, potentially deterring conventional wars. On the other, the same tech can be adapted by extremist groups or hostile states for attacks on Western civilian or military infrastructure. The ease of building and operating these systems creates new challenges for global security agencies. Russia's response to the vulnerability exposed by the operation created a cruel strategic dilemma. Strengthening air defenses means ramping up military spending that already devours an unsustainable chunk of the national budget. But admitting gaps that could be exploited in future operations risks more attacks like this. The need to scatter aircraft and reinforce bunkers means operating less efficiently and higher logistical costs, the exact goal of sanctions meant to make sustaining the military effort impossible. For Western analysts, the operation offers valuable insights into vulnerabilities in their own military facilities. American air bases in the Pacific, NATO installations in Eastern Europe, and British military infrastructure face similar threats. The capability Ukrainians showed to penetrate hostile territory with relatively simple tech forces a rethink of conventional defenses. The operation also highlights the importance of human intelligence and long-term preparation. The 18 months of planning needed to pull off the attack suggests that effective defenses against similar threats require not just technical systems, but also the ability to detect and neutralize spy networks during their prep phases. For Western defense industry, the operation is both a warning and an opportunity. Air defense systems need redesigning to handle coordinated swarms of low-cost drones. At the same time, the demand for effective countermeasures opens doors for developing innovative defensive technologies. Operation Spiderweb might mark a turning point in the evolution of modern conflict. It shows how smaller forces can use creativity, commercial tech, and meticulous planning to neutralize conventional advantages of bigger powers. This has deep implications not only for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but for global security dynamics. For Ukraine, the success validates an asymmetric warfare strategy that maximizes impact while minimizing risks. For Russia, it's a rude awakening about vulnerabilities that need addressing with increasingly scarce resources. For the rest of the world, it offers a glimpse of how future conflicts might be fought. The democratization of military technology, combined with tactical creativity and meticulous planning, is redefining the global power balance. Every Ukrainian drone that broke into Russian airspace carried not just explosives, but a message about the future of warfare. Traditional size and resources might no longer be enough to guarantee military superiority. Operation Spiderweb is way more than a successful military strike. It symbolizes the crossroads of tech innovation, economic pressure, and geopolitical reality in a world where the rules of conflict are being rewritten. While Russia struggles to maintain its military capacity under crushing sanctions, Ukraine shows that determination, creativity, and international support can make up for serious material disadvantages. The impact of this operation will keep echoing far beyond the current conflict. It redefined views on territorial vulnerability, proved the potential of commercial tech adapted for military use, and offered a preview of a future where asymmetric conflicts can decide outcomes between drastically different nations. For the global audience, the operation delivers important lessons about resilience, innovation, and the crucial role of international support for nations defending their sovereignty. Most importantly, it shows that in an interconnected world, the ability to adapt and evolve can be more valuable than traditional power resources. Operation Spiderweb is just one chapter in a story still unfolding every day. Every new tech development, every economic shift, and every geopolitical move adds new layers to this complex narrative that's reshaping not just this specific conflict, but the future of global security. If you found this analysis insightful and want to keep up with the most important developments shaping our world, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. By turning on notifications, you'll be the first to know when we bring new deep dives into the events that really matter. Our commitment is to go beyond shallow headlines and give you the context and connections you need to truly understand what's going on.